To make games in Unreal Engine, you will have to work with nodes. There's thousands of nodes, but in reality you only use a couple of them. These are the top nodes you must know about in Unreal Engine. Starting off with where your game starts as well. Event begin play. Everything you hook up to this event will fire off at the moment the player starts playing. I can, for example, connect a print string on this event, and when I start the game, the print string appears. Speaking of the print string node, it's a node I use the most. I use it to test out if my blueprint has succeeded or gets to a certain point in the code. By simply sandwiching the print string in between, I can quickly determine if the blueprint gets to that point. Additionally, you can change the time it stays on screen, and change the colors so you can easily observe which blueprint the string comes from. The branch node is Unreal's version of an if statement. It checks a boolean condition, which can be true or false, and then executes one of its two outputs based on the result. The for each loop takes an array of any type of variable and runs through each of the items in the array one by one. The array element output stores the current item being processed in the loop as a reference, so you can directly work with it. You can, for example, have an array of actors that all contain a name variable. By using a for each loop, I get the name variable from the array element and print it. When the loop is done, I hook up a print string on the completed output, which tells me that the loop has completed. Custom events can be created alongside the already existing events in the event graph. These can be called from within the same blueprint or from another blueprint using blueprint communication. The events onComponent begin overlap and onComponent end overlap are used for checking collision. Simply create a collision component. This can be a box, a capsule, or a sphere collision. This will create an invisible shape around your blueprint that checks for collision with anything. You can find these events in the details panel. These nodes have a couple of parameters attached to them, but the one I use the most is the other actor parameter, which tells me what other actor collided with the blueprint. When the actor is leaving the collision shape, the onComponent end overlap event will execute. The setTimer by event executes an event after the amount of seconds you enter in the time variable. You can hook this up to a create event and find your custom event in there, or just use the delegate input. If you want something to happen every 2 seconds, you should take the loop parameter. By saving this timer as a variable and calling it, you can stop the timer at any point by using the node clear and invalidate timer by handle. Here I just have an integer variable, which I print out and add 1 to it. Make sure you put it on looping, and as you can see, this gives me a timer. The timeline plus lerp combination is possibly the strongest duo in the entire universe. They make a variable change value over time with the speed you want to give it. Create a timeline and double click on it. Give it 2 points, one on 0 seconds with a value of 0 and one on 3 seconds with the value of 1. Hook this up to the alpha input of a lerp. The lerp takes 2 values and blends between them based on the alpha. So if the alpha is 0, it outputs the minimum, and if it's 1, it outputs the maximum. And for anything in between, it calculates your corresponding value. So let's say I would add a point right in the middle of the timeline, so on 1.5 seconds, and I put the value lower than 0.5. So here the value will change slowly first but speed up over time. Hook the output of the lerp to opening a door, for example, and you have a nice smooth door opening. Event tick is one of the default events in the event graph. Anything that's hooked up to this event will execute every single frame. Use this with caution, as it will cause performance issues over time if you use this event a lot. With the set actor location and rotation, you can place an actor to another place in the world and give it any rotation you want. Casting is a way of blueprint communication, and it's useful if you know what actor you're trying to communicate with. It's used to check if the object is of the same type as what you're casting to. Hooking this up to the actor reference of a onComponent begin overlap event will check whether the overlapped actor is the thing you're casting to, and then gives you access to all the properties from the blue output. You can call functions, or for example get or set variables. So casting is one of those things you need to watch out with, because too many casts can make your game slow. To know when you should and should not use casting, make sure to watch my previous video where I go more in depth on the different ways of blueprint communication. The last node I want to touch upon is the get all actors from class node. This node can be really useful to fire off something to all the actors of a specific class, but you don't have a reference to use blueprint communication. You can hook up the array to a for each loop and then fire off an event or function for all of the actors from the class that are placed in the world. However, this node is also seen as the cursed node in Unreal Engine. It can make your game really slow, especially if the class you're getting has a lot of objects placed in the world. To learn about the different kind of groups of nodes, make sure to watch one of my earlier videos. Like, subscribe, and hope to see you in my next video.